My name is Margaret, and at 62 years old, I discovered something terrifying. I had never truly felt alive. Not once in my 40 years of marriage, not once in all those careful, measured years of being the perfect wife, the devoted mother, the respectable woman everyone admired. But let me tell you something that will shock you as much as it shocked me. Last summer, in a centuries-old villa overlooking Lake Como, a man 27 years younger than me touched my hand during a dinner party, and my entire body caught fire. I'm not speaking metaphorically. I felt flames. I felt electricity. I felt something I didn't even know existed. What I'm about to share with you isn't a story about right or wrong. It's not a story about morality or consequences. This is a story about waking up, about discovering at an age when society tells you your life is essentially over, that you've been sleeping through your entire existence. And darling, once you wake up, there's absolutely no going back. My story begins not in Italy, but in Connecticut, in a colonial house with white shutters and perfectly trimmed hedges. For 4 decades, I lived what everyone called the dream. Richard was a successful attorney, respected, reliable, and utterly predictable. We had 2 accomplished children, a circle of equally respectable friends, and a life that looked absolutely perfect from the outside. But here's what no one tells you about perfect marriages. They can be absolutely, devastatingly empty. Richard and I stopped truly seeing each other somewhere around year 15. Intimacy became a scheduled obligation, something that happened twice a month with the lights off, efficient and emotionless as a business transaction. I convinced myself this was normal, that passion was something invented by Hollywood, that mature love was supposed to be comfortable and quiet. I was so desperately wrong. The invitation came last June. My college roommate, Patricia, was celebrating her 65th birthday at her summer home in Lake Como. "Margaret, you haven't taken a trip alone in decades," she said over the phone. "Leave Richard with his golf tournaments and come live a little." Richard barely looked up from his newspaper when I told him, "That's fine, Margaret, I'll manage." I should have felt hurt by his indifference, but honestly, I felt nothing. That's how numb I'd become. 40 years of emotional numbness, like living underwater, watching life happen through a thick, distorted glass. Lake Como in summer is breathtaking. The villa Patricia rented sat perched on a hillside, surrounded by cypress trees and gardens bursting with lavender and roses. The air itself felt different there, thicker somehow, charged with possibilities I couldn't yet name. The first dinner party, Patricia introduced me to her eclectic group of European friends. Artists, writers, entrepreneurs, people who spoke multiple languages and lived with a freedom I'd only read about. And then there was Alessandro. He owned a small vineyard in Tuscany, Patricia explained. 45 years old, recently divorced, devastatingly handsome in that effortless European way. Dark hair touched with silver, eyes that actually looked at you, really looked like he was reading your soul. When he took the seat beside me at dinner, my hands trembled. I told myself it was the wine, the altitude, anything but the truth. "You seem uncomfortable," he said in accented English, his voice low and warm. "Is the food not to your liking?" "No, everything is beautiful," I stammered. He smiled, and something in that smile recognized something in me. "But you're not used to beautiful things, are you? Not for yourself." That question cracked open something inside me. How did this stranger see in 5 minutes what I'd hidden for 40 years? "Tell me, Margaret," said he, pouring more wine into my glass. "When was the last time someone truly saw you?" I couldn't answer, because the truth was, never. The next 3 days were torture. Beautiful, confusing torture. Alessandro appeared everywhere. Morning coffee on the terrace, he'd be there. asking questions about my life with genuine curiosity that felt almost invasive. Afternoon walks through the village, I'd turn a corner and find him at a cafe, waving me over with that dangerous smile. "Your husband," he said one afternoon as we sat overlooking the lake. "He doesn't appreciate what he has, does he?" I should have been offended. I should have defended Richard, my marriage, my entire life. Instead, I heard myself whisper, "No, he doesn't." Alessandro reached across the small table and took my hand. Just took it. His thumb traced slow circles on my palm, and I swear to God, I felt that touch everywhere. My breath caught. My heart hammered so violently I was certain he could hear it. "Margaret, you're starving," he said quietly. "Not for food, for life. I can see it in your eyes. You've been dying slowly for years, haven't you?" Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. This stranger, this man I'd known for 72 hours, saw me more clearly than my husband had in 40 years. "I don't know how to be anything else," I confessed. "I don't know how to want things, how to feel things. I've forgotten how." He stood, still holding my hand, and pulled me gently to my feet. "Then let me remind you." What happened next, I can barely put into words. He didn't kiss me, not then. Instead, he walked me through the narrow cobblestone streets of the village, pointing out details I'd never have noticed. The way sunlight hit ancient stone, the smell of jasmine climbing a wall, the sound of distant church bells echoing across the water. Life is in the details, Kara. Not in the big, empty spaces, but in these small, perfect moments. You've been living in the empty spaces. He was teaching me to feel again, to notice, to be present. And God, it was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. That evening, Patricia pulled me aside. "I see the way you look at him. And darling, I see the way he looks at you." "Patricia, I'm married. I'm 62 years old. This is insane." She took my face in her hands. "Margaret, you've been dead for decades. I've watched you disappear piece by piece. If that man can bring you back to life, even for a few days, isn't that worth something?" That night, I stood on my balcony, looking out at the moonlight dancing on the lake. My phone buzzed. A message from Alessandro. "Tomorrow, come to Tuscany with me. Just one day. Let me show you my world." My finger hovered over the reply button. This was the moment. Say yes, and everything changes. Say no, and stay safely dead. I typed 3 letters. Yes. Alessandro picked me up at dawn in a vintage convertible, the kind of car that belonged in old movies. The drive through Tuscany was like entering a dream. Rolling hills covered in vineyards, medieval villages perched on hilltops, the morning sun painting everything gold. I felt like I was betraying Richard with every mile, but here's the truth that terrified me. I didn't feel guilty enough. I felt alive. His vineyard was small, intimate, rows of grapevines stretching toward ancient stone buildings covered in ivy. "My grandfather built this," Alessandro said, helping me out of the car. 3 generations of passionate, stubborn men who believed wine, like love, cannot be rushed. He took me through the cellars first, cool and dark, the smell of oak and fermentation heavy in the air. His hand rested on the small of my back, guiding me, and that simple touch made my skin burn beneath my cotton dress. "Taste this," he said, pouring deep red wine into a glass. I sipped, and he watched my face intently. "What do you feel?" "It's complex, rich. There's something almost dark about it." "Exactly." He stepped closer, so close I could smell his cologne mixed with summer air. "This wine has depth, layers, mystery. Like you, Margaret. You have all this depth inside, but you've never let anyone taste it. Not really." My hands were shaking again. "Alessandro, I don't know what I'm doing here. You're remembering how to live," he said simply. Then he did what I'd been both dreading and desperately wanting for days. He kissed me. And oh God, I had never been kissed like that, not once in 62 years. Richard's kisses had always been perfunctory, closed-mouth pecks that asked nothing and gave less. But Alessandro kissed me like he was starving, like I was air and he'd been drowning. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I melted into him completely. When we finally broke apart, I was crying. I didn't know it could feel like this. "Because no one ever wanted you properly," he said, wiping my tears with his thumbs. "That husband of yours, he's a fool. An absolute fool." We spent the afternoon in his garden, eating cheese and bread and figs from his trees. He told me about his marriage, how it had ended because they'd become strangers. "I stayed too long," he said. "I wasted years being comfortable instead of alive. I won't make that mistake again." "And what about me?" I asked. "What am I doing?" He took my hand, kissed my knuckles slowly, deliberately. "You're waking up, Kara. Finally waking up. The question is, what will you do now that your eyes are open?" As the sun set over the vineyard, painting the sky in shades of fire, Alessandro led me inside the stone farmhouse. And that night, I discovered what my body had always been capable of feeling. I need to be honest with you about what happened that night, because this is where everything shattered and rebuilt itself all at once. Alessandro lit candles throughout the bedroom, old stone walls flickering with golden light. He poured wine, put on soft music, and then he did something that broke me completely. He asked, "Margarita, what do you want? Tell me what you want." No one had ever asked me that, not once, not about anything that mattered. "I don't know," I whispered, and it was the truest thing I'd ever said. "Then we'll discover it together," he said, and began unbuttoning my dress with agonizing slowness. What I experienced that night, I can barely describe. For 40 years, intimacy with Richard had been something I endured. 5 minutes in darkness, mechanical movements, his relief, and my nothing. I'd convinced myself I was broken, that women my age didn't feel desire, that passion was a myth. But Alessandro touched me like I was precious, like every inch of my 62-year-old body deserved attention, worship, time. He kissed scars from childbirth. He traced laugh lines with his fingers. He made me feel, not despite my age, but celebrated because of everything I was. "You are magnificent," he whispered against my skin. "Can you feel how magnificent you are?" And then, somewhere around midnight, something happened that I genuinely didn't know was possible. My entire body convulsed with pleasure so intense I actually cried out, shock and joy and disbelief all mixed together. Alessandro held me through it, laughing softly, triumphantly. "That's it, Gara. That's what you've been missing. That's what you deserve." I sobbed in his arms afterward. 40 years. 40 years I lived without knowing my own body could do that. 40 years of thinking I was defective, inadequate, somehow less than other women. Richard never... I couldn't finish the sentence. "I know," Alessandro said gently, "but now you know the truth. You're not broken, Margarita. You never were. You were just with the wrong man." We didn't sleep. We talked until dawn, bodies tangled together, and he asked me questions no one had ever bothered to ask. What I'd dream about, what made me angry, what would I do if I could live life over? "I would have left him," I heard myself say. "Years ago, I would have chosen myself." As the sun rose over the Tuscan hills, reality crashed back in. I had to return to Lake Como. In 3 days, I had to return to Connecticut, to Richard, to my perfect, suffocating, hollow life. Alessandro pulled me close. You don't have to go back to that life, you know. You could stay. We could see where this goes. I'm 62. You're 45. This is fantasy, not reality. No, cara. This is the only real thing you've ever had. Everything else is the fantasy. He was right. And that terrified me more than anything. The flight back to Connecticut felt like a funeral. Every mile taking me further from Alessandro, from myself, from the woman I'd discovered I could be. Patricia hugged me at the airport in Milan, tears in both our eyes. Whatever you decide, she whispered, choose yourself this time, promise me. Richard picked me up at JFK. He looked exactly the same. Gray suit, distracted expression, already talking about a case at work before my seatbelt was even fastened. He didn't ask about my trip, didn't notice that I was fundamentally, irrevocably different. That first night, back in our bed, he reached for me with that familiar, perfunctory touch, and I couldn't. I physically could not pretend anymore. I pulled away. What's wrong? He asked, annoyed. Everything, I said. Everything is wrong, Richard. It's been wrong for decades. We had the conversation I should have had 20 years ago. I didn't tell him about Alessandro, not specifically, but I told him the truth about our marriage, the emptiness, the loneliness, how I disappeared and he never even noticed. I don't understand, he kept saying. We have a good life, Margaret, a stable life. Stable isn't the same as alive, I said. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had, or maybe I'd finally found it. I filed for divorce 2 weeks later. Our children were shocked, confused, angry. Friends chose sides. My comfortable, respectable life imploded spectacularly. People whispered, they judged, they called it a midlife crisis, though at 62, I think we're past midlife. I didn't care. Alessandro and I talk every day, video calls where he shows me sunsets over his vineyards and I show him the small apartment I rented in the city. We're planning my return to Italy next month. I don't know if we'll last forever. Maybe this passionate, impossible love will burn out. Maybe the age difference will matter eventually. Maybe I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. But here's what I know for certain. I'm alive. For the first time in 60 decades, I'm fully, completely, terrifyingly alive. I feel everything now. Joy, fear, desire, uncertainty. And yes, it's messy and complicated. And sometimes I'm absolutely terrified. But I would rather feel everything, even the painful parts, than feel nothing ever again. So to anyone listening who's been sleepwalking through their life, who's convinced themselves that comfort is enough, that passion is for other people, that it's too late to want more, let me tell you something. It's never too late. Never. Your body knows how to feel pleasure. Your heart knows how to feel joy. You just have to be brave enough to wake up. I'm Margaret. I'm 62 years old, and I finally learned what it means to be alive. And darling, I have absolutely zero regrets. And now, I want to speak directly to you, sitting there on the other side of the screen, who listened to this story until the very end. What did you think of Margaret's journey? Does it make you uncomfortable? Does it inspire you? Or does it make you question your own life? This is a real story. The names and locations have been changed to protect privacy, but every emotion, every moment of awakening, every tear and every touch, completely real. Margaret exists. She's living her truth right now, somewhere in Europe, finally alive. Here's my question for you. How many years have you been sleepwalking? How long have you been telling yourself that comfort is enough, that passion is for other people, that it's too late for you? It's never too late. Never. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something, subscribe to Real Hearts After 60. We share real stories of people who refuse to let age define their capacity for love, passion, and transformation. Hit that notification bell, leave your thoughts in the comments, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because, darling, life is waiting. The question is, are you brave enough to live it?